Hola, yo soy Horacio Pérez y esto es Investigando la Investigación, un podcast donde investigamos cómo investigan los investigadores, tanto en la academia, industria, independientes. Todo ello mediante entrevistas y debates abiertos, técnicas y estrategias para mejorar todas las partes del proceso investigador y, no menos importante, opiniones abiertas que espero llamen tu curiosidad y te hagan también reflexionar. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Today we have the pleasure to have in the podcast Bianca Pereira. Hi, Bianca. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Horacio. How are you doing?
Thanks, Bianca. Very well. Thanks. Thanks, Bianca, for accepting this invitation. I have read a little bit about what you do, but I would like to briefly introduce her. Bianca Pereira, one of her main objectives is to make research easy because she believes that research is for everyone, and the way to get started is by learning basic personal knowledge management skills, because knowledge can only be managed if it's outside our heads. So today we will talk a little bit about it. I briefly mentioned that the background from Bianca is she's researcher in computer science and currently consultant for personal knowledge management. Is that correct, Bianca?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay. So can you briefly tell us why did you get into computer science and why did you finish lastly as a consultant in this PKM thing?
Yeah. Well, that's a long story. Actually, so long that it starts when I was 12. Actually, when still like my parents bought a computer, we didn't know how to use. They were afraid that you would break it because the time was like, oh, computer here, we have one and we don't know. It's this mystical thing here. Then my father put us in a course, like simple course, let's say Windows, but they also taught HTML. It's really like how to create the very basics of websites. And at that time, what I learned is that, wow, if I can have a way to represent things in the world or like model things in the world, although I didn't have that word at the time, 12-year-old model, what's that, I saw I can create a website for everything, I can create forms and I can create like everything that I can put on a screen. So that's what grew my interest in computer science. And when time arrived to come to the university, okay, I need to choose an undergrad, or even before high school, we had technician. I did technician informatics. Was really like, okay, I could do everything. So which direction should I go? And then I was like, well, one advantage of computer science, first, I liked the idea of like create websites, and later I love the idea of programming as well, is that we can work with anyone. Like during my career, I work with people in nutrition, sports science, finance, dancing, physical education. There are all areas of knowledge. Like with computer science, you can work with everyone because everyone nowadays use a software for something. So that's why I really decided to go into computer science specifically. Yeah.
Okay. And then when you got into computer science, after the end of your studies, what did you decide to do using this knowledge that you have learned studying computer science?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the university, at some point there was a decision point. It's like, well, should I go into further studies like master, a PhD, or should I go to industry? And I was always like in the middle. I worked in industry during my whole undergrad, okay, doing internships, learning how to program actually in real and like programming environments. And I also tried to do initiation in the research for undergrads. And I really like the idea of like just learning like whatever you want, almost like, oh, there's this area here, let's investigate and let's see what you can learn. So I really love that. So I was always in between. So I decided to give a try to go into more the further studies, let's say master's and PhD. And during my career as a researcher, then I end up in the middle again. I was working in academia, working in partnership with industry. Okay, so I was like doing the research, but applied to what industry needs. So the types of projects that industry needs. And when I decided to follow that direction, I started a PhD in another country. I am originally from Brazil. So I did my undergrad there, I did a master there, and then I decided in 2013 to do a PhD, and I came to Ireland. And that's where things start to go wrong. Ireland is awesome. Yeah, Ireland is awesome. The institute was awesome, but I did all possible mistakes that I think a PhD student could ever possibly do.
Why? Why mistakes? Why?
Yeah, there are many reasons. And then what happens, like I did all the possible mistakes and I quit my PhD. That was the story. Like in third year, I said, okay, I cannot do that. I was having physical problems already, even going to the hospital. I cannot move my arms, so much stress, so much anxiety. And I say, I cannot keep going like that. So I say, it's better to quit now, take care of myself and decide what I want to do for the future. And when I say all the possible mistakes, because we come with many mindsets from classical education, let's say, undergrad or before, okay? And when you come with that same mindset into a PhD, it just doesn't work. Because a PhD is a completely different environment where you need to lead your research, you need to take responsibility for your research, and then there are people who will support us in the research. For example, the supervisor or advisor, there are people who support us in the process, which is very different from a teacher, you know, in undergrad or before, where they actually say, this is the right direction, these are the steps that you need to take the direction, you just need to follow. Whereas in the PhD, it's like, we don't know exactly how to arrive where you want to arrive. You have an idea, you need to explore, and your responsibility to figure out which path is that. And I'm here as your supervisor to support you in that process, not to tell you which direction you should be going, you know. So that is a mindset that we don't always learn. Let's say everyone who is academia already kind of learned that, and we don't always pass that to new students, you know. So the new students, they need to somehow figure out, and I was like a first, people say first generation. So I didn't know about the culture of academia or all those things which are more like mindsets or the ways of thinking. So I started already with the wrong foot. And there are other things like then into perfectionism as well, because we come from before, and it was like, you just need like to know the things and do the exams and needs to be good, you know. So there's always this thing of needs to be high quality. Everything you do needs to be high quality. But in an environment of high uncertainty, which is the case of research, you don't know exactly what is the high quality, how to arrive at there at the beginning. You need to go and do iteratively and improve until you're like, okay, this is high quality enough so I can publish, I can communicate. But when you come from, okay, I need to know this body of knowledge and do good in exam, and this is what high quality looks like. I know in advance what it looks like. When it comes to a high uncertainty environment, we just break down. Really break down in terms of anxiety, of not or having writer's block, which is a big problem. So those are all the things that led. There are like many things all on top of each other, so led me into giving up of the PhD at that point, and what actually led me to where I am today, to what I'm doing today.
But one thing, you said that there were kind of mistakes, but as you explain your point of view, it's certain. I also agree that a PhD or more general, any kind of research project is always something that involves a lot of risk, uncertainty. Otherwise, it will not be research, where you need to find the way or something. But I can also understand, I supervise some PhD students at the beginning, they are lost because they come from a world, let's say, I think it's what you said about teaching, where everything is established. You need to go from step 1 to step 2 and then 3, But real research, when you explore the uncertainty, there is no kind of, there is kind of a broad map about where you want somehow to go, but the way is not clear. Okay. And I also think that the PhD students need to learn kind of develop for themselves how to think, how to sort things out. And it's complicated, but I don't know from a point of view. And sometimes not everybody is kind of prepared for that, or not everybody will like that kind of thing. Okay. So some people prefer, okay, I don't want to think. I want you to tell me kind of the exact steps I need to follow. But some other people like me, I don't think I'm especially intelligent or smart, okay, but I love uncertainty and I like to explore things and that. Oh, but I understand it's complicated in any case to find the way in uncertainty. Okay. So then you left your PhD, and then where did you go from that point exactly?
Yeah, at that moment, I was really like, okay, I don't know what to do with my life anymore, because my identity was kind of very deeply associated with the idea of being a researcher and doing a PhD and following that direction. So I say I need some time to think, but first I need a job. Then I need to I need to do something else. And when I was thinking, I was really like, should I go back to industry and go back to like programming and all those things, or should I try to do research, to work more with research? And I was like, I don't want to go back to industry, because I don't want to be like every single day doing the same things and not be able to innovate, to think differently or to do different things. Because if you go to, let's say, just a development position, especially, it's just like, okay, you need to develop this. Sometimes you're not even in the position of choosing how that thing will work. It's just like, you just need to implement it. And I say, I really don't want that. And I really love the research. And I say, I think research is for me. What happens, like, even before I left, I say, well, is it like, what's the problem here? So I went to internship in industry. A research internship was in Microsoft at the time. So I went to US, spent like 12 weeks there, and it was awesome. It was a totally different environment. I think I did what I didn't do in 3 years of my PhD. I did that in 3 months. We even considered publishing, but I was like, I'm so like too much. I don't want to publish. I'm happy I'm happy knowing that I can do it. I just need to figure out how, and then what I did, I got a position in the university to work as a research assistant, which basically, like, if you have a master or undergrad, you could work as research assistant. So that's where I started in working in partnership with industry. So it's industry, research, partnerships. So I worked there. I got promoted to research associate, which is similar to postdoc without a PhD.
Okay.
I started to become project manager because it suited the work I was doing, and then I felt into that role. I working on citizen science because I always loved it. I really believe that everyone can do research, different elements of research, sometimes not like a full research project. So I got the opportunity to actually get funding for a citizen science project, which is not so common for people without a PhD to get funding.
What is, sorry, Bianca, can you explain for the audience what citizen science is?
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Thanks a lot. Citizen science, the idea is that you can involve people who are not researchers, who are citizens, in the process of research, of doing research, not just reading about research or learning about research, but actually doing the research process. So we had it was a project to map footpaths. So with OpenStreetMap, which is something similar to Google Maps. So the idea was like to map the footpaths. So for us to learn what are the areas of the cities where people who have disabilities can go. And the idea was to expand for everyone, because we started with people who are blind, people who use wheelchair, and people who use crutches, or dogs. If they're blind, they use the dogs. So we started by those, and the idea is that it could be expanded for people even without disabilities. Could be like parents bringing a trolley, for example. Could be runners. Everyone have different needs when navigating footpaths. So I say, okay, let's do as citizens. Let's participate on this research on how can we map the footpath. What are the what are the elements of the footpath how can we represent them in a map, which I call like how is the semantics of things? Semantics like the
Okay.
meaning that give to things in the map. So that was really the project. So it was really nice. It was a national project, so it was really nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
So
yeah, please.
yeah. So then I started like going into all those things, learning how to do research. But I said, because at that point when I gave up on PhD, I said I need to figure it out. I started reading all possible books. There are still many books here.
Wow.
All possible books like about writing, doing research methods, presentations, everything. And then as I was working in research, I started applying that and doing like tiny tests, let's say more on my skills. And then I started to improve. And as I was getting promoted and get other roles, I said, okay, I'm learning and it's working. And then at some point, I say, okay, now it's time to come back to the PhD as a part-time and see how it goes. Yeah.
Okay. And now, as you mentioned, it looks to me that in this project of citizen science, you solve research problems. Okay. But I guess at that time, there was also uncertainty on that project, right? Okay. So I don't know how different was the situation in academia in initial PhD project that you started with, and then in this research position. Okay, at the same time, in both situations there was uncertainty, but what was the reason why you liked most the situation in the industry? There was something different where you felt more comfortable, or what was the change?
I think the main change was first the change in my mindset, because I saw I'm doing things wrong and I don't know how to fix them anymore. And when I went there, I went to really blank slate and I say, okay, let's see how it happens. Let's see how it goes, which was a different way of dealing with the uncertainty, because I was really like, I don't even know how is research in industry as such. So just come here and I was like, let's see how it goes. Let's even one day at a time, And I worked very close with my supervisor. That was like daily meetings, like quick meetings. So we're always like navigating the environment interactively. So that's what really makes the difference, rather than just like, after 1 week we report, and the report, like I did so many things and which types of the things I should report or not.
So you mean frequency was the most important difference in both different scenarios?
Frequency in the contact with the supervisor, yes, but not only the frequency, but all the approach that I was taking, because I was really like, okay, this is what we learned today, what to do tomorrow, rather than, this is the goal for the end of the year, and then let's break down into the parts, in the tasks and all the things. So that was the main difference.
Okay. So you suggest that if you suggested today to a PhD, let's suppose you are going to supervise a PhD student, okay? How would you work with these people? Would you plan exactly what they are going to do and meet with them daily if possible, or which approach would you follow?
Yeah, what I used to say, because I work with some colleagues as well when I was in academia again. So what I would say, like we plan, like what's it's almost like the vision, what do we want to arrive, what's the question that you want to explore, because I think that's the most important thing. What's the question that we want to explore? And then it's really like we have these overall ideas that we want to investigate these types of things, more on the long term, these type of things, but it's not really specific. But when you come, okay, what I will do the next week or the next month, then it's really like, okay, I'll test this, and then I want to learn this, so it's really specified. We specify only on the short term and try to iterate on based on what we learned from our explorations. And that's what we inform the next stage. We cannot really plan a 4 or 5 year project to the dot, to the test, what you'll be doing. Which what you usually, what you usually do in other types of projects, like more operational one. Yeah.
Okay, so then you started a PhD, and the PhD was on the same subject as like in the beginning, or you switched to another area?
I switched it. I started, I used to do what I call entity linking, which like, how can you link a database of knowledge, to text? Okay, I have some text and I say, I want to know what the person is talking in this text. So there are the words, and I want to say, this person is talking about, let's say, this concept in Wikipedia, for example, or these other concepts in Wikipedia. That was what I was doing at that time, but not with Wikipedia, but more with a multiple knowledge base. So that was the idea.
Okay.
Do anything with multiple knowledge base. Then I came to the page and say, I don't want to work on that. I started a new topic, which I'm not working on anymore, because now, well, fast forward, what happened is I was doing my PhD, I was working in academia, 2020 came, started work from home, and I decided, okay, now it's time for me to become mom. I became mom, took maternity leave, and when maternity leave was finishing, and I was like, well, I want to spend time with my son, so I cannot be in academia. I even tried like leaving him in the daycare, but I was really like, I said, no, I really want to spend time with him, and 9 to 5 will not work for me. That's why I became a consultant. And then I work like early mornings and late afternoons so that my husband can work during the normal work hours, and I stay with my son at that time. So that's how we have been managing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is your consultant work about? Is related with what you did in your research, or is something new?
It's related on how I solve the problems, the issues that I have. Yeah.
Great.
And it's what I say is I suggest is the first step in the process of learning about research is actually personal knowledge management. Because in research, like we need to investigate all this uncertainty area, create a coherent body of knowledge, and then write about it to communicate to others. That's what research basically is about. And what we usually do, like most people do, I will not say everyone, but most people do, is like we do all the research, then we have the papers that we read, and maybe highlight them, take some side notes only. We have plenty of data, plenty of things that we have been doing, have been working sometimes for months, but we don't have our knowledge about it, our insights about what we read, our insights about the data we have. And we tend to, when it's time to write the report, is that we put all these things together. We make sense of everything. We try to connect what's the insight with what came from the literature. And then we need to browse through 100 papers with highlights all over the place, So I was like, okay, there is a much easier way to do that, which is by creating what I call the idea management system, which just to manage our ideas, our insights that came from papers that we read, analysis that we did, data that we collected, experiments and everything else. And that's what my consultation is about. It's about how can you create a system that can go from expressing our knowledge, removing all that perfectionist way of thinking, then organize our knowledge in a way that is easy to find, but also helps the process of understanding in this area of uncertainty, because it's high uncertainty. So how can we build our knowledge and make sense of the information we are consuming or generating as we go? So when it's time to write, our notes are already there. It's basically like it's already written when it's time to actually draft our outputs to take away.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. And how do you do this? This is a kind of a one-to-one consulting service, or you teach in groups, or how do you do it?
Yeah, I have a 5-month mentorship program. So it's 1 month of course when I go through all the things from the beginning to end. From beginning, like, okay, I don't even know what notes are. I don't know which tools. I don't know what to do, what mindsets I should have, because I always start by the mindset, the way of thinking, until how to organize everything, how to generate new knowledge, because at the end we want to create original knowledge. So how can I create new ideas from the ideas I already have notes about? And then how to create, how to convert those notes into an output. So the 5-month program, 1 month of courses, intensive courses, and then 4 months of support, group support. And I started now also private coaching, which is the same process, but just one-on-one.
Okay, I will leave in the show notes. I will provide a link to Bianca's website. Of course, if you want to contact her about these very interesting services, but can you? I guess it's very complicated, but or pretty simple. I don't know. But can you provide some guide about how is the process, about kind of dumping the information into a system and then using that information bytes in order to then quickly create some research paper?
Mhm. Yeah, I think what I like to say, there is always like many people say, okay, which tool should I use? Which tag should I use? Which folder structure should I use? And I say, that's the wrong question. Okay. I like to think like that's first the mindset. Like, what do I want to do? Which ways of thinking that I want my tool to support? Then we can go, okay, which methods can implement this way of thinking or can support this way of thinking so that I can use a tool to implement that, to actually use all those things. Okay.
That's
So
pretty wise.
Yeah. So that's the way how I
Yeah.
like to think. So I always focus on mindset first, because even when we decide what goes into a note, okay, many things can go into a note. So I like to say there are at least two types of notes. One is what I call document note, and the other is what I call idea note, for example. So a document note is when you say we write a project. So a project in a full note. This is a note for this project, or is a full brain dump, like, or just write everything that we are thinking about. But when it's time to find the information again, the ideas are trapped inside of those document notes, and we don't know, like we have thousands of those and we have no idea where our ideas are when it's time for writing. So I say, well, rather than, we can write those notes, but we need to convert them, organize them into idea notes. So the point of idea notes is that each note focuses on one single idea. And then in the course, I really go to what that means. What's one idea? How can you create the boundaries of one idea? Which helps in the process of research itself. Because that's how we create objects of study, let's say. We create, this is the idea that I'm focusing my attention on, and I'll be studying this idea. So then we write this type of notes, for example. And that's how we focus on the organization of notes for research.
Okay. I have the impression that at the beginning, people that I suppose people that start your course, your consulting, I guess at the beginning they are not used at all, because people, I guess, they follow the classical approach, as you said, one single document, they dump everything there, and then it's pretty complicated to get back to the document later because everything is a mess, and you are lazy because there is a mental barrier. Oh man, this is a mess. Okay. Yeah. So how hard it is for people to get used to this new system?
Yeah, actually, in the first week, I already get people writing those types of documents, because the first thing is to put ideas out of our minds. Because most of the time, people are not even used to write those big documents. It's just like highlighting sources, and we don't even have a note, really a full note. So there are people who cross that barrier. So in the first week is really like we cross that barrier into, okay, now I'm writing things. And still in the first week, I say, okay, now that you wrote this huge thing, how can you convert them into idea notes? So I give a few methods on how can people, which I call pick a phrase and the reverse outline. So then we can use those two methods to actually create those idea notes. And what most people like in the process is that we're not just organizing for the sake of organizing, because that's what makes many people just abandon note-taking altogether. We are organizing for making sense of our thoughts. It's like, which ideas do I have here? Which ideas I want to explore further? Which ideas I want to create a paper about, So we are actually looking at our thoughts, and we can only look at them because we wrote them down first. Because if they are just in our mind, it's really hard to think about them and having the thoughts and everything together at the same time.
Right.
So that's why it's important to express and then think about them and organize them into what I call the idea notes.
Okay. I mean, it's very interesting. And another question, I guess this is a typical question now. Do you think the last breakthroughs in artificial intelligence and all this hype can be useful for these kind of approaches, or is it not needed? What do you think?
That's an excellent question, because as I said, I'm coming back to my PhD. And as I say, I had the original topic, and I gave up. I'm actually pitching the new topic, and my new topic is exploring AI as a thinking partner for sense-making via note-taking. So it's exactly that. So my hypothesis is that it does support under certain conditions. Right? If it's what I call the passive note-take, which is really like highlighting, taking the side notes and that's it, I would say I'm not sure like if there is even too much of a sense making in that process. But if the active one, then there are 3 cases, you know. One case is, well, should AI do the note taking for me? Because many people actually, they just want ChatGPT to do the job for them. And I say, well, I don't think it will help much. You know, it can give you an answer, but it's not helping your process of making sense of navigating. But I believe that it can support if it's AI assisted note taking.
Okay.
You know, so AI is supporting our process of thinking. You know, okay. So that's what I want to explore as part of my
Wow.
PhD.
And any suggestions about how, because if somebody takes just highlights in the papers, and as you said, I think you said passive processing or something like that.
Passive note taking, or passive consumption.
Or passive consumption. If you don't do anything, if you don't transform for yourself, if you don't process by yourself that material, either using AI tools or something else, then I think you don't learn that kind of material. Okay. But I mean, okay, I think that's a very interesting research field at the moment. Very cool. And have you published anything about that at the moment? Something that you can share with us?
Yeah, in research, not yet. I'm literally today meeting with my PhD committee to actually say, well, this is my new topic, and they'll say yes, go for the next academic year. Hopefully, like in a few hours, I'm meeting with them. So in terms of research, I don't. I have a lot of material, more in terms of my newsletter or things that I share on social media or part of my course, because I have been talking about that for a year. But now I want to do this on the research side. I have the research papers and hopefully my thesis in 3 years' time. So let's see how it goes.
Great. I will also provide links in the show notes because Bianca has a newsletter, very recommended, so that you can follow her and all these updates. Okay, Bianca, and any anecdote, any something unexpected or anything that you can share with us about this methodology or your consulting services?
Yeah, what I would like to leave it with like a metaphor that I like to live with my students on what is research about. There are 2 metaphors that I really like. So the first one is that we started by swimming in a sea of uncertainty. Okay. We don't like, there's information all around. We don't know which information is useful, which not, which is like building a puzzle. PhD is like building a puzzle, or doing research like building a puzzle where we don't have the box with the final picture. We have many pieces and we don't have all the pieces that we need. And some of the pieces that we have are the wrong ones. Okay. So we are drowning in the sea of uncertainty. So personal knowledge management is one way where you can kind of like get on a safe pier, even when the sea is still there, and we start navigating rather than drowning in it. The research literature, we need to find a way to speed up through the research literature, you know, rather than be like, try to draw on all of those, to arrive where the actual research begins, which is uncharted territory. It's a part of the map where we have a mountain as a point of reference, which is that vision. We want to arrive there, but I don't even know how that mountain looks like. And our goal is to go through that journey into uncharted territory. And the research itself that we communicate is the map for that territory. If someone comes behind us, they want to go to that territory as well. We are the ones providing the map on how they can navigate. So I think that's my whole perspective of research on how research actually works.
Very excellent. I agree with you. And I like that metaphor. I think it's very visual so that people can get an idea about that.
I have a picture.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Bianca. So it was very, very interesting. It was a pleasure to have you here in the podcast. We wish you the best in your consultancy services and also in your PhD. And please keep us up to date if some publication or something comes up. Thanks a lot and wish you the best.
Well, thanks a lot, Horacio, for inviting, and have a very nice day. I hope to talk to you soon again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.